Welcome to Folk Tales. I'm Dominic Zammit, Director at Boatfolk, and throughout this series I'll be joined by a wealth of guests from the UK's boating community who will be sharing their stories of lives spent in, on or by the water. This is a podcast by Boatfolk for Boatfolk. Today we hear from Mike Townsend at East Cowes Marina, who's been joined by CEO of the Ellen MacArthur Cancer Trust, Frank Fletcher. Frank and Mike talk about the history of the trust and the fantastic work that they are doing to help young people recovering from cancer, all through the power of sailing. It's an absolutely inspirational story. Let's have a listen.
Okay, well, hello everybody. This morning I'm talking with Frank Fletcher, CEO of the Ellen MacArthur Cancer Trust. I'm going to hand over to him fairly shortly just to fill us in on what the Trust does and what its purpose and vision is. So, Frank, lovely to see you. Lovely to talk to you this morning, even though it's a cold and not quite frosty morning. Yeah, just fill us in a little bit on the Trust and what it does.
Hey, Mike. Good morning, and it's lovely to see you on this morning. And just before we talk about the Trust, I'm missing you, so it's nice to see you on a Zoom screen. So normally we see each other 2 or 3 times a week at least. So it's been a little bit weird over the last few months that we've not been in our office. We've all been working from home. So the Ellen MacArthur Cancer Trust is a charity that works with young people post-treatment, so post-cancer treatment. And what we try and do is to inspire young people to see a brighter future. So cancer in young people is thankfully very rare. And the good news is that actually we're very good at treating young people with cancer. So survival rates are very high, and survival rates over the last 20 years have improved hugely. But that treatment that has led to those great survival rates obviously is, many people listening to this have a personal experience of this or a good friend, but that treatment can be very challenging. It can be quite dilapidating. And particularly in those formative years, whether it's young people that we work with in their early teens, children that we work with under the age of 12, over the age of 8, or young people in their late teens, early adulthood, it's really hard, and it leaves young people with a lot of challenges. They find it really difficult to re-engage with education or re-engage with work, go back to university. And what the Trust tries to do is use the outdoors and sailing to help young people realise that they can re-engage, and to help them spend time with other young people who've been through the same experience, to have that challenge of doing something that's new and slightly adventurous, and also just spend time with other young people who've been through the same experience as them. So we work with every primary treatment centre across the UK, and we bring young people from all around the country to our base that we so proudly have in East Cowes Marina, and to the base that we have in Largs on the west coast of Scotland. And they come sailing for 4 days, and they live, they sleep, they cook on the boat, and they go off on a little adventure. And then we work with them for a number of years after that with other activities in the outdoors. But the start of every young person's experience with the Trust is to spend 4 days on a cruising yacht with 5 other young people who've been through the same experience as them.
Do you find, I can understand that for the majority of young people that come on the trips, it has a profound effect, but do you find that there are some that you sort of can't help, that it doesn't work for?
So I don't think there's people that we can't help. I think that, because I think everybody gets something out of the experience.
Sure.
I think there are young people that we work with in the long term, and there's young people who might come on one trip with us, and that's enough for them. So I can't claim any credit for this analogy. This analogy came from a fantastic consultant nurse specialist in Leeds, a lovely woman called Sue Morgan, who was really involved when we first set up the Trust in helping us to understand young people with cancer. And she describes organisations like the Trust as like a nest. And actually the point of a nest is that the baby birds, and I should know the name for a baby bird, but I can't think of the name at the moment. That's and chick, there you go. Thanks, Mike. We all hate doing podcasts. So the whole point of a nest is that the chick leaves the nest and they fly off. And so actually, I think it's tempted at the trust to think that we're successful when a young person comes back for 2 or 3 years and we really see that growth in them. But actually, sometimes success is that they come to you for 4 days and that's all they need. And then they leave the nest and they fly off. And as she said, it's really important that they know the nest is there and they can come back. And we've had that experience where, a young person has come to us for 4 days, spent 4 days with us, really enjoyed it and got something out of it that they really needed, and they've gone off. And then actually they've come back to us 2 or 3 years later because they've hit a later bump in the road and actually they've needed that support again. And then we have some young people who come and we support them for many years. And then we have some young people who come once, spend 4 days with us, have a fantastic time. We see the impact of what it's done, but then they go off, and that is equally success. But I don't think we've ever had a young person who's come on a trip who's hated it or not got anything at all out of it. There's some young people who get more out of it than others. I mean, we have people who come and are seasick, and no one enjoys being seasick. I mean, your listeners to this podcast will really relate to that. And we have young people who come and they don't get much out of the sailing, but they really get something out of the peer support. So actually to them, the sailing's great, but it's not, actually the really useful time to them is having a hot chocolate in the evening and chatting to the young person next to them. Yeah. And then you have young people who come and fall in love with the sailing. We've got now 2 skippers who were young people who sailed with us, who just loved the sailing and went on to, do other sailing with other people and then go on to do their yacht master and now come back and sail with us. I mean, the magic of the trust is that people get what they need from it. We don't make the difference. We create this secure space. And your listeners are in the vast majority sailors. We all know what it's like on a small boat with a bunch of people. The deepest conversations I've had in my life have been at 3 o'clock in the morning on a night watch, coming back from the Channel Islands, sitting in a cockpit with one other person in the dark. And, you have that conversation you probably would never have with anyone else ever again. So, we have young people who come and they sit in the cockpit in the evening with a cup of coffee or a hot chocolate and they have a conversation with someone who's been through the same treatment as them. And then, they say, oh, well, I've been reading about, this issue with fertility. And they probably the first person they felt they can have that conversation with. And then the other person might say, well, so have I, and I've been talking to this person, and have you had a look at this website, or late effects of some of the cancer drugs, or how they're feeling about their body image, or so it's about us creating a safe environment and that unique environment that you get on living on a boat. I mean, you go sailing with someone on a cruising yacht, and 2 hours later you feel you've known them for 20 years. Yeah. So it's that we create, and actually your listeners will understand that. There is nothing like spending a day with somebody on a boat, and then cooking in the evening with them, and then, waking up the next day and going sailing again. That is unique. And beauty of talking to you on this podcast is your listeners will get that. Yeah. It's really difficult to describe that to a room of non-sailors, because they sort of look at you and go, why is that unique? But it is. We all know it's unique. Those friendships that are created in that way.
But it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to explain. And it's interesting that you're saying that a couple of them have gone on to do sailing longer term or as a career, because it's I mean, everyone who keeps a boat with us kind of knows that the sailing's a bug that you catch, and it's very hard to shift. And it is. And it just, you can never quite tell who it's going to affect, but once they've got it, they've got a problem. But fascinating to hear you talk about it, Frank. And I guess anyone listening to this, they may well have seen the couple on Grand Designs the other day, and they're great ambassadors for you because they're just the most inspiring couple. It was fabulous to see, and I guess you must have kind of have some pride in just seeing where they're at.
Yeah, I mean, it was really lovely. And I've known Georgie and Greg for a long time, and they are just the most amazing people. And they met on a trip. So they met on, in fact, I think, I hope this is right because it's going to be published. I think they met on our first ever over 18 trip. If it wasn't the first one, it was definitely the second or third one. And they they created this friendship and obviously led to romance quite quickly on our trip. And they are fantastic people. And I'd say watching There were two things I loved about Grand Design. Well, there were three things I loved about Grand Designs. Obviously no one got to see it before it went out. And the first thing that I loved about Grand Designs was just seeing them doing that project together and knowing them quite well and just seeing how they approached that project. And wow, what a project.
Yeah.
The second thing I loved about it was the house. So I have got an invitation post-COVID to go and see the house, and I'm definitely gonna be taking up that offer. But the third thing that really blew me away, and I think this was the nicest, biggest thing for me, was the reaction they got on social media. Because we all hear about the down. I mean, I love tweeting. I tweet away all the time, and quite like social media. But there are downsides to social media, and we all hear them all the time. And so I was watching Grand Designs, and I was also on Twitter at the same time watching the reaction. And I think the thing that I most loved about it, and that was and maybe this is linked to COVID, but it was the reaction they got, because literally they got exactly the reaction you just said, Mike, which was there was just all this love. And maybe it's that we're all just, we all had the negativity, and the stress that we're all living under and of COVID, and actually maybe it's just seeing something positive. But literally there were thousands of people on Twitter just going, this couple is lovely and this house is amazing. And there was nobody. Normally when you watch Grand Designs, I'm not a big Grand Designs fan, but I know Grand Designs normally splits the audience in terms of the people and the house and the project. And what I loved on this was that just the positive reaction. And the Trust, Georgie and Greg, were kind enough to wear some of our T-shirts. I think they managed to wear our T-shirts every time they were filmed. Channel 4 were not very happy about that. But we got a massive reaction. We got people contacting us, and it was just really lovely. I mean, I'm just so pleased for them. And actually, one of the things not covered in the programme is that Georgie and Greg are hoping to do a project where they use the house to give respite to young people going through the same experience as them. And they've got a website, and I can't remember what it is, but if you go and Google it, you'll find it. And I know that they have started to, and they're going to talk more about that side of the project on their website, which is great to see. But it was just a great programme, and what an amazing house. What an amazing project.
And it was interesting just because it was an uphill struggle, and the stuff that was put in their way was just the sort of stuff that would have floored the rest of us quite quickly. I'd have just gone, oh, you know what, forget it, it's not worth it, and it was such a ridiculous thing that the house was listed or whatever. It was just, it was crazy, but fabulous.
I am embarrassed, Mike, because I've got two walls in this house that really need a paint. and I've got the paint in the shed. I've got the paint brushes in the shed, and they did make me think. Actually, if they can do that, they can. Greg can dig out those foundations by hand. Surely, one Saturday during lockdown, I can get the paint brushes and the paint out the shed and finally paint that wall in the kitchen that desperately needs painting. But I still haven't managed it, so I'll have to do it.
Yeah, no, it's true, isn't it? It's a big nightmare. Oh, well, brilliant. So, Frank, let's just take you back a little bit. So you and I have kind of known each other, and you worked with my good lady wife back in the day at UKSA. How did the idea of the Ellen MacArthur Cancer Trust come about? And then at what point did you get involved, and how did that pan out?
Yeah, it does. We have known each other a long time, Mike. I have a significant birthday coming up. I'm starting to feel a little bit old, I have to tell you. So I was working at UKSA for most of my career, not all of my career, but most of my career I've worked in outdoor education, sailing. You might remember the time UKSA was run by a lovely guy called David Green, good friends and great guy, and Ellen and Mark Turner. So Mark Turner was Ellen's business partner at the time. And I sort of knew Mark reasonably well, and I knew Ellen a little bit. And Ellen and Mark were looking to set up the Ellen MacArthur Cancer Trust. And that came because Ellen went sailing with a French charity, and I now have to apologise to all of the listeners who can actually speak French, because I can't. And you can take the boy out of South London, but you can't take South London out of the boy. But Ellen went sailing with a French charity, excuse the pronunciation, called a chasson sans cap. I know that's not how you pronounce it. I know there are people shouting at this podcast now. And a chasson sans cap do exactly what we do. they're a French charity. I mean, they do it in a very French way. So there's, they do it in let's just take 100 kids out on the water, it'll be fine. And they're a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful charity. So they work with, again, young people in recovery from cancer, and they work through sailing. And one of Ellen's early, and I hope I get this story right, one of Ellen's early teammates, brother or sister had leukemia and had sailed with the Southampton Cup, and they persuaded Ellen to go sailing with the charity. And Ellen said yes, because she says yes to a lot of things. And actually, I think on the morning she woke up and she suddenly thought, I've never been sailing with kids, and my French is good. I mean, Ellen's French is fantastic now, but at the time I think it was good, but not fantastic. And I think actually in the morning she suddenly felt really nervous, and then she went sailing with this French charity, and she absolutely, I mean, she talks about it much better than I ever will, but she loved it. She had this most amazing day with some amazing young people. And she came back from that day and she said, we have to do something in the UK like this. And she absolutely raved about it. And then, so UKSA and Offshore Challenges, which was Mark and Ellen's business venture at the time that ran her around the world voyages, approached David at UKSA and said, we're looking to set up this charity based on this French charity. Could UKSA support it? Which they did. And, David very kindly suggested to me that I might want to get involved and help. So, I mean, originally I was a trustee for the Ellen MacArthur Trust. And for the first couple of years, we ran from UKSA. So UKSA were great to us back in 2003. We ran under their safety management. We used their boats. They really were an incubator for the Cancer Trust. And so for a couple of years, my involvement was sort of as the liaison at UKSA, and I was a trustee for a couple of years. And then I got involved in a project at UKSA called Gypsy Moth, which you might remember, Mike, and was involved in trying to raise the funds to get the boat through its refit and then get the boat to sail around the world. And I did that project, which I loved. I mean, one of the highlights of my life. And, I think it was a fantastic adventure, but it did take a little bit out of the people involved. I think anyone involved in that project will remember that, there wasn't much sleep. There certainly wasn't any time off. I suppose all of the stars aligned, really. We'd gotten to the point where Gypsy Moth, the refit had been done. We'd raised the money. She was ready to go around the world. And at the same time, Ellen MacArthur Cancer Trust wanted a full-time manager, chief exec to run the organisation. I sort of stepped back from being a trustee, but was still involved. And I sort of had that decision point of, do I want to go around, not go around the world with Gypsy Moth, but be involved in the next stage of the adventure, which was this round the world voyage? Or did I want to go off and try my hand at something new? And I made the decision that actually by then I'd been on a couple of trips with the trust, and I'd seen the difference that we made to young people. And I could really see that we could really grow that. And it was a really exciting time. And I also sort of felt I'd come to a natural point with Gypsy Moth in that we got to Plymouth to the start line, and now it was other people could take her around the world. So I applied to the trust for that job, and very luckily Mark and Ellen, forever thankful for them. They took a bit of a punt on me, because certainly at that point I didn't have the experience that I have now, and it was a punt. There was no doubt at all. And I think, more generally in life, I think we should all remember that sometimes taking a punt on someone is the right thing to do. Actually going, okay, this person isn't quite ready for this job, but in a couple of years' time they'll be fantastic at it. So that's how I moved from West Cowes to East Cowes. So even now when I walk to work, at the times that I am walking to work, they quickly come back. I still see UKSA as I come around the corner to come to the trust office in East Cowes Marina. So I didn't move far, but so that's how I ended up moving across the river to the trust and to East Cowes.
Good to see that UKSA is still there and going great guns by the looks of things. And also the Gypsy Moth is all right, and I just saw that she'd gone up for sale again recently, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, it's great to see UKSA doing well, and I think Ben's just announced this. They're going to do some fantastic building work at the front of the site. So what used to be my bedroom when staff still lived on site is finally going to be knocked down. And I have to say, I'm sure Chrissy, who worked at UKSA, will agree with this. It needed knocking down 20 years ago, but it definitely needs knocking down now. So it'll be really exciting to see what they're doing. It's good. It's been great to see them actually come through COVID so well. They've managed to move stuff online. And I've felt that all organisations, it's been such a tough year for everyone. I saw a great thing on Twitter the other day that was basically saying, it was talking about the charity sector, obviously UKSA is a charity, and it was saying, we need everyone to succeed. It's not about us succeeding, it's about we need everyone to succeed, because actually we need everyone to be there in 18 months. So now it's great to see. Yeah, I saw Gypsy Moss up for sale, but she's in good condition. I think that she's had two wonderful owners. They set up the Gypsy Moth Trust, so it's not as if they're going to sell her for a profit and take the money out. They've put a huge amount of money into her. But I think it's time for someone else to take over those reins. And she's looking good, and long may she continue. She certainly looks better. I think you were at Greenwich when we pulled her out of the ground, Mike, weren't you?
No.
I'm imagining that.
Yeah, you're imagining
but,
it.
She's certainly looking better than she looked when she was at Greenwich. She
was a
1,000 times better. Yeah, and it's good when I see her sailing. I always feel a bit of fun. Everyone says she's horrible to sail. I had some wonderful days sailing on Gypsy Moth. I'm not sure I'd want to take her across an ocean for some fun sailing in the Solent. I think she's great. Everyone complains about her sailing performance. I think she's a lovely boat to sail.
And that's the point, isn't it? That I always remember seeing her at Greenwich, and it never made sense. You looked at it and you go, well, okay, it's kind of. I mean, it didn't look that great anyway because it wasn't well maintained. But you looked at it and it's sort of stuck in concrete. You're like, that's not the idea at all. So I think it was a great project, start to finish, frankly.
She was part of my childhood, though, Mike, in that I grew up in Catford in South London, which isn't far from Greenwich, and Gypsy Moth was free to go on board. Quite often on a Sunday, but Cutty Sark cost money, so we never went on Cutty Sark. But we always went on Gypsy Moth, because Gypsy Moth was free and Cutty Sark was expensive. So going on Cutty Sark was a real treat. So we used to go to Greenwich Park on a Sunday, and then at the end of the day, we'd wander down and we'd be allowed to go through Gypsy Moth. And I remember everything was behind perspex, so you sort of walk through the middle. So I mean, the project for me was like part of my childhood coming back.
Fantastic.
She was free to wander through when I was a kid, when she was in concrete.
Yeah, all that stuff is crazy. I was always interested in Alec Rose and his trip, because my dad worked for the Navy, and when Alec Rose was coming back up the channel, he was tasked with tracking him, trying to find out where he was. And then ended up on the evening news. I remember watching my dad on the evening news trying to explain where it was, tooting up the western approaches. And so, of course, I've always been interested in that. So going back to Ellen's part in the trust, how involved is she today with the trust?
Yeah, she's still massively involved. So I think Ellen does two things for us. She does a thing that she really likes, which is she jumps on a boat with some kids and gets to go sailing. And Ellen doesn't competitively sail anymore. So actually it's her sailing with other people. So she comes and gets involved, normally jumps on when we're in Yarmouth and spends the day with the young people, and really enjoys that and gets a lot out of that. And then the bit that she does, I'm sure she would tell you she loves and enjoys, which is that she's really great at going to talking to people about the trust and really helping with our fundraising. And Ellen's great at opening doors. She's fantastic at that. So she's really involved. She's one of our trustees, so she gets involved in the strategic direction of where we're going, and so she's fully involved. I mean, it was a real, she had that personal motivation to set it up following the experience I talked about earlier, and that has remained. She loves just coming and spending time with young people, and long may that continue.
I guess because you guys have been here, and back in the day she had her try B&Q with us for a little bit, so we bumped into her over the years. I remember coming up the pontoons once after an evening race, which had been a bit leery, and we'd managed to pop the spinnaker up, but the wind had picked up and we had a right old broach and water flying everywhere. And we were just chatting about it coming up the ramp from the pontoons. And Ellen just happened to be there. And she looked at me and just went, yeah, Mike, you should try doing that on your own in the Southern Ocean. And I was just like, yeah, okay, I've been well and truly had there. Yeah, I was just. She
does have that. Yeah, she can definitely outdo you on the.
I think most.
Yeah. I mean, I remember on one of our trips we had I mean, she is very hands-on when she needs to be, because we had an issue with one of the boats when we got to Yarmouth and needed to sort out the steering cable. And, Ellen ended up head first in this tiny little hatch at the back. I mean, all your listeners will be able to relate to that. And I went down and said, "Are you sure you're right, Ellen? I mean, are you okay doing this?" And I got a very quick response about the fact that definitely didn't need any help, and she was definitely okay in the small box, and it was twice the size of the box at the front of B&Q that she'd spent 6 hours fixing something as we went around the world on her own. So I went away and made a cup of tea and sat in the cockpit and chatted to a few people instead.
She'd have made the perfect marine engineer, really. She's not a big person. I guess we've touched on the whole COVID thing and pandemic, but how has that affected the trust? I mean, I know you guys have mostly not been here, but how has that left you now? What's your position now?
So we had a choice last year, really. So it's getting close to that 12-month anniversary as we record this. So 12 months ago, I remember telling everyone to pack up their desk, go home and work from home. And I remember thinking as I left East Coast Marina, that'll be a couple of weeks and we'll be back and it'll all go back to normal. I'm obviously not very good at forecasting these things, Mike. So we had a choice, really. We could have shut our doors, put the keys through the letterbox, and probably be coming back about now, I suppose. But one of the things we realised very early on was that, a lot of our young people were shielding, and a lot of our young people were very concerned about their health. And so we decided quite early on that what we needed to do was still support young people. It became pretty clear pretty quickly that we weren't going to be running trips as normal, but we really wanted to support young people. So we went out to all of our young people, partners that we work with, and our volunteers, and we basically said, what can we do? And we actually asked the young people what we could do, the partners that we work with, what can we do? And from that, we developed what we called Virtual Summer. So we did various things from home, online, not all online. So we did a couple of things one of the most successful things we've done is we did a pen pal scheme. So it's called Pen Pals for our under 18s, trust letters for our over 18s. Who'd have known that people wanted to write letters, Mike? So we realised, so the things that young people came back and told us was they were going to miss the peer support, they were going to miss the socialising, they were going to miss some of the signposting and deeper conversations that we did. So we created this virtual summer around that. So we did everything from Tuesday night hangouts, where we played, big part of the trust trips is Uno. So we did online Uno, we did, online quizzes. We did all those things that people did during the first wave of the pandemic. And that just brought young people together. And then we did some more serious stuff. So we realised that because young people weren't coming on our trips, they weren't getting to meet other young people and find out where else they could go for things like fertility, body image issues, fear of relapse, survivor's guilt. So we did a series with our partners, Teenage Cancer Trust and Click Sargent and Trek Stock, we did a series of conversations with. So we basically brought young people together to talk about those issues that they might talk about on the trips. Then we got our skippers doing silly things like, how to tie knots and little videos. So our skippers were obviously not able to work, but were at home and had phones. So we got them to do these little silly videos that were just really popular. Yeah. I've talked about the pen pal. So we basically did a summer of activity that wasn't face-to-face, but hopefully got people face-to-face in an online or a letter type of way, replace that face-to-face.
Yeah.
We were very lucky. Our funders were fantastic. So a lot of them repurposed their grants. A lot of people who have supported us in the past got in contact and said, how can we help? Lots of individuals helped. I mean, people were and are incredibly generous and supportive. So that was last year. So we carried on supporting young people, and we all came and worked from home like the rest of the world. We still managed to do what we needed to do. And then in terms of this year, we don't know what's going to be possible yet. We really would like to get back to supporting people face-to-face, but I think it's too early. I was listening to the radio this morning, and 10 minutes of the Today programme questioning Mr. Hancock on whether he's going to Cornwall or not. Didn't quite seem to be the most important thing they could be asking him for 10 minutes, but maybe that's just me. So obviously we don't know what's going to be possible this summer, but we really want to get back to face with people.
Yeah.
Obviously we're not family bubbles, so I look forward to seeing a packed Solent this summer and a packed East Cows Marina full of people in family bubbles that can definitely go sailing, and they're going to have the most amazing summer. I can't wait to get back on a boat. Actually, it's the first year I haven't sailed. Last year, and I miss it. I didn't realise how much I miss it. I just want to get on a boat and go sailing. So we will do something face to face. We're just working out how we do that. So, and I think over the next couple of months we'll have a clearer idea of that. So we've done okay through COVID. We still supported people. Obviously, like all charities, our income has taken a hit.
Yeah.
So, we've probably seen about our income drop by about a third. But, we were a financially secure organisation as we went into the pandemic. The team have been wonderful. I have to say, the team have been fantastic in, guys, we're going to have to really buckle, really batten up the hatches and get through this storm, and they've been great at that. So going into 2021, I feel a lot more positive. We will come through this and we will be face to face with young people again, hopefully in some way in 2021, but definitely in 2022. And I look forward, Mike, to, wouldn't it be wonderful just to be wandering around in shorts and a t-shirt in July, and we'll have a bunch of kids arriving and you'll have a full marina, and God, that's great. That's something we can look forward to.
I used to worry about, and now I
and now you love it, Mike.
Yeah, it's going to be the best thing in the world.
But you know what? I hope that we do enjoy a bit more. I hope that we all hold on to that a little bit of let's just enjoy that. I don't realise how tactile a person I was. I've said this to a few people who know me well, and they're all like, yeah, Frank, you're really tactile. I never quite realised how tactile I was. And I'm really missing just like shaking hands, people that I know well and it's appropriate, giving them a big hug. I really miss that. I can't wait for that.
I'm like you. I like to, get close to people and when you're talking, give them a nudge and a tap on the shoulder and that sort of. Then you just
And we all know that we've got to keep our distance, and we all know we've got to wear masks, and we're all being good about it. But actually, you just there's a couple of friends that I just can't wait to see and give a And actually, just without getting too deep on the podcast, there's been a couple of friends who've been through things over the last like lots of people over the last 6 months. They've had really tough times, and when we were able to, I was meeting them to go for a walk, or, meeting them outside. And actually the big thing I wanted to do was just give them a hug. Because they'd had a really rubbish time. I had one friend, going through grief, and we saw each other at the point that you could meet outside, but you still had to keep a social distance. And, all I wanted to do was hug them. And I couldn't hug them because, we were all being very careful and doing the right thing, which is the right thing to do, by the way, not, But it's just hard because you just want to go up and give them a great big bear hug and try and make it a bit better. So as soon as we can, that's the first person outside my family I'm going to hug. It's going to be,
well, they have been warned. So, Frank, thank you very much for talking to us. Anyone listening, how can they get involved? What can they do, through any of the things we've talked about, through Ellen or through Georgie and Greg? How, if they're inspired to help you guys out, how can they do that? How can they get involved?
If they go to our website, there's a whole section called Get Involved. Just type in Ellen MacArthur Cancer Trust in your Google or other search engines are available, and we'll pop up. And on our website is a Get Involved section. Mike, just before we finish, there's one thing that I just want to thank you and your team, because we are always made. We've been in East Tasmania now for 10 years, haven't we?
Yeah, which is the thing we will celebrate somewhere along the line.
Yeah, absolutely. When we're all together, we're going to celebrate. But and you're trying to interrupt me because I'm about to say something nice, and you don't like people saying something nice. But I'm going to say it, and you're not allowed to cut it out. One of the things that makes our life so much easier is you and your team, and you are all wonderful. And it's little things like, we've had incidences where we've brought a boat back early because someone's not well, and you found us a berth in the busiest Friday of the summer, and it's been a berth that we can back the boat up to the back of the pontoon so we can get a young person on and off the boat easily. Your team have been wonderful to us, and you've always made us feel really welcome, and we feel like part of the East Cowes Marina family. But I know that we probably at times disrupt the easy flow of the marina, and it never shows on anyone's face at East Cowes Marina. It never, when we turn up with 8 boats a day early and you find some space for us, or we need to move a boat or change a berth or whatever it is, you guys have always made us not only feel welcome but just made things so easy, and we really, really appreciate that. And I think this is probably our opportunity to thank you publicly, because the relationship we have with the team at East Cowes Marina is wonderful, and we really appreciate it. And yes, when we're back and we don't have to wear masks or socially distance, I think we should go and celebrate perhaps in a lifeboat and raise a glass to 10 years.
I think that's a very good idea, Frank. Well, thanks for that. And it's always been a pleasure having you guys there. You're great tenants anyway, but it's just, for us, it's a lovely thing to be involved with, and it just gives another great angle to working here. So it's totally a pleasure for us. And hopefully, the plan is to get more involved with you guys and do some more fundraising for you, and just going forwards, work closer together. So long may that relationship thrive.
Absolutely. We'll be back together soon, Mike.
Well, Frank, I think that's it. I think all I need to do is thank you very much for joining us, and hope that we see you down here very soon. We just wish the Trust all the best for the future, and look forward to a bright future ahead of us, and hopefully a lovely sunny summer of 2021. Thanks, Frank.
Mike.
Brilliant. Cheers now.
Well, I for one will be offering Frank a hug once we're allowed again. He's doing an amazing thing with amazing people, and I think everyone at Boatfolk are looking forward to the next 10 years with the Ellen MacArthur Cancer Trust. I hope you enjoyed listening, but I see you for the next episode of Folktales soon.